Well, Mildred, we're on the eve of a big day in your life on the 17th of February. What's taking place then?
Well, let's see. I'm having a birthday.
Okay. And how old will you be on the 17th of February?
94.
94. Do your family members live that long generally?
No, I'm the oldest. Nobody's lived this long.
Okay. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I guess the Lord wasn't through with me.
Yeah. Still had a lot of work to do. Yeah, see, I just wonder if our improved health care helps us live a lot longer these days. So.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I lived all my life until I married. I was in Rayville, Louisiana, and that's before you get to Monroe.
Yep, I filled up with gasoline there before in Rayville.
What?
I filled up with gasoline in
Rayville.
Had somebody back into my car while I was doing it. So what?
They do have gas stations.
Yeah. What was the religious atmosphere like in your family growing up?
Well, we had a very simple life. There ended up being 10 children in our family, so we always had somebody to play with. And things were not very complicated then because we didn't have telephones, we didn't have radio, we didn't have TV, we didn't have cars, we didn't have all this other stuff that crowds you out of a place to live now almost.
So you mentioned all those items, TV, and so do you remember one invention or thing that we've developed that was more significant than any other that changed your life? Some of the developments that they had?
Well, I think probably the cotton picker. Because we had to pick cotton by hand.
Okay.
And that came along even after I was gone from over there, but to me that was great.
Okay. So that put you out of a job then.
Yeah.
I know that your faith has been important to you. When I came to pastor this church in 2010, you and Paul, your husband, were very involved here. You and your husband Paul were very involved here in this church when I became pastor in 2010, and y'all had been here for a lot of years before that.
Well, we came here in 03.
03.
Okay,
03. Mm-hmm. All right, good. And how did you meet Paul?
Well, Paul grew up in Mississippi, but he had a sister that lived in the same community where I lived in Louisiana, and she had a son that was Paul's age. And Paul would come over in the summertime to visit with them and be with his cousin, I guess.
Nephew.
And I met him over there because our social life was around the church. And almost every weekend, somebody would plan something at the church just for a get together. And that's how I met him.
Okay.
I saw him the first time when I was in the 6th grade, though.
Oh.
And I never forgot him.
Okay. All right. That's good.
And we started dating. I was 15, 16, and he was a couple of years older.
Okay. And then tell me about your child. Your daughter.
Oh, well, after we married, we came to Mississippi, and we had Polly right away, the only child we had, but, and then we were fortunate to have her, and she's been a sweetheart.
Yeah, she's supervising this filming of this video even today, so we're grateful for that coming from her. I remember you shared with the church probably 10 years ago the story of how you came to commit your life to Jesus. So from an early age, you were exposed to who Jesus is, and you knew the truths about Jesus. but there was a turning point for you in the commitment you made to be a follower of Jesus. So give us a little bit of a flavor of that journey for you.
When I was growing up, we did not even have churches over there. If we had an empty house out in the country, maybe the Methodist people would come and get all the children together and play games and tell Bible stories. And I guess the Baptists probably did that too. But I was about, 10 or 11 before we ever had a church that we could really go to. And it was a social life for us. You know, we had no other social activity. And when I was 12 years old, my Sunday school teacher told me, "You need to join the church." She didn't tell me anything else about being saved, about giving my heart to the Lord, or repenting of my sin or anything. I joined the church, and the preacher shook my hand and said, "God bless you, sit over there, somebody will get you information." He didn't say anything to me about being saved. Well, I had done what they said do, and I thought that was all there was to do. I stayed in church all my life, though. As I grew up, I taught Sunday school, I taught children, I later started teaching adults, and just what was in the quarterly. That was all I knew. And after so many years, it was 25 years before I was really saved. And after so many years, I began to see that there was something lacking in my life because of Scripture. And I guess it was speaking to me. I think the Word is what really got to me. But one night, after 25 years, I was awakened in the middle of the night, and I knew it was the Lord. He said, "You are lost," getting the point across to me. Immediately, now I had not even remembered what I had done 25 years ago in just joining the church. Immediately I remembered that. And I knew I had to take care of that business right then. I told the Lord I wanted Him to forgive me of my sins and to come into my heart, and that I believed that He had died and was buried and arose from the dead, and He would have done it all just for me. And immediately I wanted to tell somebody else. And that has gone on all these years. I was, 36 at that time. And I have not quit telling people what the Lord did for me, because it really struck me as something if I hadn't done, I would have been headed for hell. And I did everything I could to, I woke my husband up first and told him, and he was so surprised. And next I told my daughter. She was in high school.
That next morning.
And I had to get her up and tell her. And then I went to the neighbors on both sides of me. They went to the same church we did. And they were all so excited for me. I had a neighbor who was having a garage sale, and she used her garage sale to buy things for a mission project that they were having. So all the neighbors gave their stuff to her, and she sold it and contributed to that mission project. And she had a yard full of people at her house that day. And I told everybody. And there was a preacher's wife there, and she told her friend, she said, we don't want to listen to this. Let's go on. That was the first rejection I had, but it came so quick, you know. And I guess the next day must have been Sunday, and I went to church and I told my pastor, and he was just like my husband was, you know, what is this, you know? And then I told my Sunday school class. I guess I had about a dozen ladies in my Sunday school class, and that day there was a new person had come to church, and they were looking for a church home, and she was in my Sunday school class. And when I gave my testimony, she was just, well, I've never heard anything like this before. And she decided she would come to that church on my confession of faith. And the devil got right after me. He said, you're going to look so ridiculous going down, and after you've been teaching Sunday school and WMU president and working with the GAs and all that, you're just going to really show out, you know. I said, get behind me. I have been able to tell him all my life since then, when to get away and leave me alone. And he did. But my Christian life has been really special to me. It's been what I needed. I needed the Lord.
And I think your Christian life has been very special to so many of us that love you and are grateful that at the age of 93 and on the eve of turning 94, you're still excited about telling people what the Lord has done for you.
I haven't lost my excitement for the Lord. And I think in all these years, and I have taught adults 50 years, but in all that time, I don't think I could ever do a lesson after I was saved without bringing in some part of my testimony. I live my testimony. I mean, and at my age now, you know, you would think you've got old enough that you don't have opportunities. If you can't go to those people, the Lord sends somebody to you. And even within the last month or so, wasn't it, Polly, that there was a man on our street doing some work, and he had done something for 3 families. And I had found out while he was there that he made a lot of money. He was well respected, and he knew exactly what he was doing and did it right. And we had to pay a lot for it, but we got our money's worth. But I found out that when he started making all this money, they just spent it instead of doing anything. They got what they wanted, not what they needed. And he told me that his house was so packed with stuff until they could hardly walk in the house. He said, we got stuff still in the boxes that we didn't need. And I told him that he could take it to the resource center. Because, you know, that's been kind of my project, you know. And he was glad to find that out. But I kind of let the Lord know I didn't know what I was going to say to the man when he told me to go talk to him. I had found out this much about him when he was working at my house, and then he was at a house next door. And I had seen him come to work that morning. He was just trying to finish up a job, but he just looked kind of like he was downhearted. And my heart went out to him, and the Lord told me to go talk to him. Well, what was I going to say? You know, I had no idea. And I just kept thinking, well, maybe he'll leave and go home, and I won't have to do that. But he didn't. he stayed, and I knew that I had to do what the Lord said. I went out and he opened the conversation. I didn't have to. And he asked me what I did before I retired. And I told him, and he said, well, you can help me with my problem. And I said, what is your problem? He said, finances. He said, I never make enough money. And I knew how much money he was making because I had paid him. And I thought, why is that not enough money, you know? But anyway, he wanted to know what he should do. Well, if I had told him what I was thinking, it would have been totally wrong. I would have said, start tithing, hire a financial advisor. He didn't need to hear that he had to spend more money. The Lord told me to tell him to get all of his problems, just turn them over to the Lord and get his relationship right, and everything else will just fall into place. The Lord did all the work. I just went for him, you know.
Amen.
But anyway, and I'm hoping that, and immediately he said, now he was a church goer too. He said, why didn't I think that? He knew in his heart what he should do, that he should start saying no sometime to his family, and he should get everything straight with the Lord. And that, I think that was about 2 months ago, but the Lord is still using me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
what a wonderful testimony that you're giving even this today, that we need to get everything straight with the Lord.
Yeah.
And life with him is good. And it goes with the slogan that's been around this church for a long time. Mm-hmm. Everybody ought to know who Jesus is.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And you know, my husband and I, we had a long married life, 71 years. But we learned a lot during that time. I'm still learning, you know. But one thing we learned was to be thankful. And you can't be thankful without praying to God. You know, we found we were just praying all day long, you know. And some people just don't think you can do that for years, but you don't have to know what the problem is. The Lord knows. And you know, we would just, sometimes we would tell the Lord to send somebody for that person to talk to. Or we seldom prayed for somebody that was sick because we didn't know that many sick folks. But we always had something to talk to the Lord about. And I think being thankful is just one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life.